Welcome back. You're still watching State of the Nation with myself, Dennis Omondi. We have just released Professor Fred Ogola, but we are still in studio with Nick Mwadime, who is the National Executive Director of KUSA. Thank you so much once again for being here.
Thank you so much, Dennis.
I'm looking at the state of the nation, and I'm convinced that this should be the opportunity for the president to be accountable to the people who are sort of his subjects.
Yes.
And when you want accountability from your president, you look at what he's saying, what he does. Listening to what he said on Thursday, did he sound like an accountable leader?
Well, Dennis, the president did set his own examination, and he wants to again mark his own examination. He puts Kenyans in a very awkward position to accept, to even imagine that this country is doing well. We understand carefully that our country is not well. We are currently in ICU because if we are having the shilling dropping by the day and having the dollar rising by the day, something must be wrong somewhere. It's either his economic advisors are lying to him or he's not taking advice from anyone. So the state of the nation, to me, it was just another way of telling Kenyans lies after lies after lies. Yes.
But he wouldn't agree. His supporters wouldn't agree that he said lies. Of course, we've looked at that speech. There are facts.
Yes.
There are half facts. And there are...
I'm really curious when you're talking about facts, Dennis, because I also listened to that speech. When he talked about the agricultural sector, right? He talked about fertilizer going down for the farmers, right? We know that there are sectors or areas of this country whereby fertilizers are still very expensive. Farmers are still struggling to go back to the shamba. We know that the issues of pesticides is still unbearable. Dennis, and the president is still not coming out very clearly how he's going to control the issue of agriculture sector in this country. We know that the issue of coffee, tea, and milk is still very unbearable for the farmers. That their prices that they are selling to the factories are still very low compared to the previous years, Dennis. That I'm really curious to understand what facts that he's giving on this state of the nation and the facts that are really actually on the ground. Yes.
Because the president was so big on, let's say, agriculture, like you say. The president was big on things like health, universal health coverage. And this looks like it was the president giving us, these are the things that I have done in the 1 year. But we also wanted to hear, what are these things that you said you'll do in the 1 year and you did not do, and why did you not manage to do them? So on that point, I'd like to ask you, what are some of these things that you would have wished to have heard from the president and he did not talk about? I heard people talk about the cost of fuel. Like, for example, we have just seen today, IPRA just revised the cost of petrol, diesel, and of course paraffin. It did not touch, let alone the cost of electricity in this country. What are some of these things that you really wanted to hear from that speech but just did not come out?
I will start by the issue of universal health coverage. One thing that on the record that it is not President Ruto who started this project, rather than the former President Uhuru Muigai wa Kenyatta. That is one. Number two, I'm very keen to understand that currently in HIF we used to pay 500 shillings, right, to get the services that you need, right? People are currently paying a figure between 1,000 shillings to 1,500. And the challenge that we are foreseeing that most hospitals are denying Kenyans even to accept NHIF because there are things that we cannot see, we cannot receive the issues of health based on if there are no funds, Dennis, right? NHIF is a sustainable program for people who cannot afford high cost of medical. But if the president is not coming out very clearly on how a common mwananchi will be able to go to any hospital and still get a good medical coverage using NHIF, then there's no any form of report that he can give during the State National Address. Number two, you've talked about the fuel price, and it is still sad that when President Uhuru Kenyatta left this country, at that moment, President Ruto was still the deputy president. He downplayed the issue of COVID and Ukraine, right? He cannot give the same excuse that he downplayed at that moment of time. It is either he's conning Kenyans, or he thinks or he perceives Kenyans to be very stupid. So at no point that him as president can he try to deceive further Kenyans. What can he do to make this country better? One, address first the issue of unga. He promised that within 90 days, the issue of unga will come from 250 to 90 shillings. That has not been addressed. Address the issue of electricity. Dennis, I cannot buy tokens previously at 1,000 shillings and get 53 units and currently get 27 units. That needs to be addressed, right? Address the issue of overtaxing, that each and every sector currently as we speak is being taxed. How do Kenyans produce more revenue or get little revenue here, Dennis, and get more taxed? That's not feasible, right? So those are the some of the issues that the president ought to have discussed during the state national address. Okay. Yes, address the issues of unemployment, right? It is growing by the day. That young people are still coming out of universities with no single hope.
Now, when you talk about unemployment, and I just want to look at what the president was saying. He was also very big on the housing project. He's saying we have 46,000 projects going on throughout the country. They are targeting over 700,000 of such units. Are you not convinced that this is going to create jobs?
Well, let's be very practical, Dennis. Not so many comrades have done civil engineering. And if I have done, for example, a Bachelor of Music, am I going to sing in those building sectors? Let us be very practical in matters of employment, Dennis. The president needs to set clear standards that he promised the comrades while he was looking for votes. That the issues of housing is a non-issue, Dennis, because we understand that there are so many courses that comrades are doing in university, not just structural, right? There are people who have done teaching, right? As the issues of teaching being addressed, Dennis. There are people who have done medicine, right? As the issue of doctors, we still don't have enough doctors in hospitals at the national level, at the county level, right? The president cannot downplay the issue of unemployment, right? He's seriously playing a lot of games with Kenyans, right? He's messing the emotions of Kenyans. People are getting frustrated day by day, Dennis, and that is a sad state to report.
Okay, and I just want to look at the figures that were being given yesterday. You had the professor in the first part of this interview speak about figures, some that were not adding up. But I want us to look at the Hustler Fund statistics as given by the president yesterday. According to President Ruto is saying 36.6 billion has been disbursed from the Hustler Fund. 2.3 billion of these are actually savings. Kenyans have saved 2.3 billion shillings via Hustler Fund. 7.5 million Kenyans are repeat borrowers, people who have borrowed more than once. And 73% of them actually pay back this money. Top borrower has borrowed 4.5 million shillings. A Kenyan has borrowed 4.5 million shillings. And the person has done via 816 transactions.
Yes.
At the same time, 631,491 are top voluntary savers, and we are having 20,000 groups that have received 151 million shillings. Remember, you can access this fund individually and also as a group. But when you look at all this, initially it was allocated 20 billion shillings. It was reduced to 10 billion shillings in the last budget. And then the Treasury came to request, we want it now at 5 billion shillings, something that is this successful. Why is the amount being reduced, amount that is being loaned to people? Do you believe Hustler Fund is a success story?
I will not downplay the issue of Hustler Fund, because currently as we speak, I understand that so many Kenyans use this fund to ensure they take care of their day-to-day cost of living. However, I'm very keen to understand the whole scenario of reduction of the amount should be discussed on at individual rate. Can we get a success story to the highest bidder, that is 43 million? I'm more disturbed this night, Dennis, because I don't feel encouraged whereby this guy has to persistently borrow the money, right? It means that this guy, for the rest of his life, he's indebted to pay the Hustler Fund. That's number one. Number two, what are the measures, or how is the Kenyan market perceiving on how he's going to produce more funds so that he pays the loan? Right? Because if the Kenyan market itself is not recipient to productivity, then this guy, there's a high probability that he's going to take more and more loans. And finally, I'm yet to know, because this Hustler Fund has a lot of gaps that the government needs to take care of, right? We need to get the exact statistics that report how many young people are taking the Hustler Fund, how many middle-aged people are taking the Hustler Fund, how many elderly people are taking the Hustler Fund. What are the projections that this fund that was used or was borrowed has economically contributed at individual rate to enable one person to move from one poverty desperation to a different level of it? Such things that is what the president needs to report at the State of the Nation. Because when you look at the intention behind the Hustler Fund, it was supposedly to help or to facilitate the economic projections of individuals, right? But can we see that at this country? I will tell you why. No, we cannot. Because if the cost of living has gone high, then there's a higher probability that this Hustler Fund will be used to take care of the needs of Kenyans. Okay. Yes, and then finally, because it's very important to say this, Dennis, recently, because President Ruto is the party leader of UDA, he did a parliamentary group meeting at State House. Yeah. His MPs are telling him that things on the ground are not as pretty as he imagines, that the people are making a lot of noise. The people are very tired. The people are growing weary. So I'm yet to see, because he is convinced that there are so many ways that he can lie to Kenyans or he can propagate false hope. I'm yet to see what kind of mechanism that he's going to use come these other years.
Actually, if we were in parliament, I'd be told lying is unparliamentary.
The speaker will call you out of order.
Thank God we are not in parliament. But anyway, the last question here tonight is... actually, you are the executive director, Mount Kenya Colleges and Universities Students Association.
Yes.
Yesterday, on education, the president talked about how they had employed about 56,000 teachers. He talked about 8,200 primary teachers being retooled to teach in the junior school. When it comes to university, which has been on the top of news in the recent past, not for really good, very good reasons. He talked about means testing in funding higher education, but he just brushed over it. He talked about opening the Open University of Kenya, but I want us to be here. We have the issue of delays in disbursement of help funds, and of course the university funding model that many don't seem to still understand how it works. Do you think he needs to explain this better and more? Because we have had them do even media interviews, explain in parliamentary committees and sittings, but people still don't seem to get it. Yeah.
Dennis, the whole issue of education becomes very disturbing to me, because the president reports that he has employed 56,000 teachers, right?
Yeah.
Yet as we speak, in so many counties, they are still struggling to have facilities like schools, right? If you travel county by county, you will realize that we are still having challenges with facilities. Two, the issue of higher education is becoming a challenge to this country. Recent statistic has been reported that this year we have had a low turnout on joining of campuses. Why? Because parents cannot afford fees to colleges and universities and even polytechnics.
Okay.
And it is a whole issue. It's a whole issue that the president needs to address. A whole issue that he's trying to ignore, that comrades are growing day by day anxiety. We talk about help day in, day out. Why are there delays?
Okay.
What is happening?
Okay.
That I am a comrade, I get to campus, I still struggle to feed myself. I still struggle to pay my fees.
Okay.
Then the president should simply tell us, Dennis, comrades, stay at home. There's no need for coming to school.
Okay, that's where we end it. Thank you so much, Nick Mwadime Mwangi. Nick Mwadime is the Executive Director, MKUSA, that is the National Executive Director, Mount Kenya Universities, Colleges and University Students Association.
Yes,
Thank you so much, Nick, for being with us.
Thank you so
tonight.
much, Dennis.
Earlier on, we also had Professor Fred Ogola, who is a strategy and governance expert. That brings us to the end of the news. My name has been Dennis Omondi tonight, and of course our sign language interpreter was Sheila Kinyaga. See you again some